Hi everyone, welcome to day 3 of our literature article on the novel Want. I'm Kat.
I'm Elsie.
And today we're talking about not the story, but kind of the background of the story.
这个故事的背景。
Yeah, because of course this has to come from somewhere. It's not like, oh, somebody made up a world where a white woman is having a hard time. No, this is actually happening to many people in my generation.
没错。
Yeah, so Elizabeth, we can recap the story a little bit. She's unhappy with her life. She often leaves work early to wander in bookstores. She's filing for bankruptcy with her husband, can't ask her parents for money. She thinks of reconnecting with her friend, but her friend has her own problems. She doesn't know what to do.
So her dreams have destroyed her life.
Basically, that's what she thinks. So, you know, she was told that she could do whatever she wanted, that she could follow her dream, and she'd be fine.
And it looks like she has it all.
It looks like it, but she actually has nothing.
Right. The real thing is, wow.
Yeah.
Her world is really falling apart.
Yep. So we're going to go ahead and learn about why the author wrote this story and a little bit about what's happening in the real world where Elizabeth works and lives.
Okay. So let's take a look.
Reading.
Want. Lynn Steger Strong's novel Want feels like a diary dedicated to a dying American dream. The book comes at a time of anxiety in the U.S. Racism is being challenged directly. COVID-19 is not just killing people, but also the economy. An election has people divided and indifferent to other people's views. Even those with the privilege of being white and middle class are experiencing misery. Children of the 1980s, often told they could follow their dreams, are realizing that this is far from realistic. Elizabeth discovers this for herself over the course of the book. Even after checking all the right boxes, she still can't make her dreams happen. Lynn Strong, a white middle-class woman herself, questioned her own privilege while writing her novel. She recognized how it would still help her, even while she was suffering. Therefore, she provided Elizabeth with the privilege of not being fired and of having a credit card that still works, even though she's broke. She showed the reader that even in a time of crisis, those with privilege still somehow manage to stay afloat.
Our article starts out today by saying, Lynn Steger Strong's novel, Want, feels like a diary dedicated to a dying American dream. Yeah, that's familiar as an American. So dedicated to means something that is saying it's for somebody or something, or that it's written with that person in mind. So if you see a book that says it's dedicated to somebody, it means the writer wants that person to be mentioned, usually because that person is important to them, they help support them. This is a little bit different though.
Lynn 的这本小说 Want 读起来呢像是 diary 日记一样。那再来呢，我们要学到的是，如果要表示把书籍、戏剧或是演出等等的作品献给某人，我们会用 be dedicated to. So for example, this book is dedicated to the author's wife, 代表这本书呢是献给作者的老婆。
That's sweet.
当然我们可以用主动的用法，像是 the author dedicated this book to his wife. 课文中啊，原句它本来是要写的是 Lynn Strong's novel Want feels like a diary which is dedicated to a dying American dream. 那这边做到省略，所以我们没有看到冠带 which， 没有看到 be 动词，直接看到了 dedicated to 的用法。那这本小说它读起来像是献给 dying American dream 一样的日记。什么是 American dream？它代表是美国梦。那怀抱美国梦的人啊，相信在美国这片土地上，无论出身如何，肯努力就会有机会。但是随着时代改变呢，越来越多人他不再相信美国梦，所以有美国梦已死的说法 ，dying American dream。
Yeah, so the American dream is that, you know, America is a land of opportunity, that you can come and you can make a life for yourself. You can have the family and the beautiful house with the white picket fence and all that kind of thing. But actually, it's dying today, and for some people, it was never real at all. It was kind of always a legend. Like, you know, it was good for white people, it wasn't always good for Black people or for Chinese people or Mexicans or something like that. You know, it's this kind of myth that has been talked about for a long, long time, and now it's kind of falling apart for various reasons, mostly the economy.
所以曾经可能是个理想，但是可能最后没有办法实现。
So the book comes at a time of anxiety in the US. Now we got to learn what anxiety means before we can understand what is talking about in the US. Anxiety is a noun that means a feeling of uneasiness, like things aren't right. You feel worried, you feel scared, you feel very, very stressed. It can be a feeling that makes your chest feel very tight. You're like, oh my God, somebody's out to get me. I feel like I'm in danger. That's anxiety. People in the US are feeling this way about a lot of things, especially in recent years. With President Trump being who he is, racism happening a lot, COVID happening, there's a lot of not having healthcare support, people are running out of money. There are so many reasons to feel anxious. That's the adjective for feeling anxiety. So an example sentence for anxiety might be, lots of students have high anxiety when they have to take important exams, and this makes them do worse.
Anxiety 这个名词呢，代表焦虑感、不安感。那形容词呢是 anxious， 所以你可以说 I feel anxious 来表示你是处于焦虑的状态。那这本书出版的时候呢，美国正处于焦虑的时期。
So why are people feeling anxious? I listed a few reasons, but here's another one. Racism is being challenged directly. So racism is this thing of acting, feeling, or speaking in a way that is against or hurts people of another race, like Black, white, Mexican, Asian, that kind of thing. It can be something terrible, like attacking somebody for their race, or it can be something small, like making stereotypes about them, like saying like, oh, all Asians are good at math. We all have to be careful of this. It's easy.
I'm not good at math.
Oh, well, there you go. You're defying the stereotype.
Right.
It's easy to assume things about others because of their race, even if you don't mean to. Like, if I assumed you were good at math because you're Asian, or worse, that you eat dog, those are racist beliefs that some people actually hold. Some people actually think Asians eat dogs.
Right. 所以这里呢，在讲的就是种族主义或是种族歧视 racism 这个名词就代表这样的意思。那形容词种族主义的或者是种族主义者，我们会用 racist。那再来呢，我们还看到课文里面有 is being challenged， 这个时态是现在进行的被动式哦，所以代表的是呢，种族主义正在直接的被挑战。
So I think the most important point from this one would be Black Lives Matter. Because that was the thing that was happening when this book was written.
Right.
And COVID-19 is not just killing people, but also the economy. The economy is the system of how money and wealth moves around between people and companies. So, you know, money is not moving and people are losing their jobs, people are losing their money, that kind of thing. This book was actually written during COVID. Like it was published in May 2020.
所以当时 racism is a problem, COVID-19 is a problem. 那这边说 COVID-19 不但夺取了人的性命，也在扼杀 economy， 指的是经济。
An election has people divided and indifferent to other people's views. Of course, yeah. So divided means, you know, they're separated, they are, you know, very far apart. Indifferent means you don't care, you don't want to know. I actually think it's not so much indifference, sometimes it's outright hostility, which means that you hate other people for the way they think.
So the election here, we're talking about the president election, right?
Yeah, the one that happened last November.
之前的总统大选会造成人民 divided 分裂分歧，或者是呢，人们会开始不关心，或者是冷淡对于公共的事物。那我们会用 indifferent 这个形容词。选举让人们分裂，然后呢，对其他人的意见观点都是漠不关心的，所以作者才写成了这本书。
Even those with the privilege of being white and middle class are experiencing misery. That's true. Not the state of Missouri, it's misery. So misery is a noun that means sadness, stress, feeling very, very low and terrible in general. If you're in misery, you might feel like your life is just a chore. You don't want to get up in the morning. You feel like the world hates you or you hate the world. The adjective form of misery is miserable, to feel miserable. So an example sentence might be, Chloe has been in misery ever since she lost her parents. She can't work and barely gets out of bed most days.
Misery 这个名词呢，代表苦难、悲惨。那我可以说 I'm in misery， 代表现在的状态是苦难、悲惨的，或是用形容词 miserable。I am miserable， 或者是 I feel miserable。所以课文说到，甚至拥有特别待遇的白人和中产阶级的人们也在经历苦难。
So children of the 1980s, often told they could follow their dreams, are realizing that this is far from realistic.
Far from realistic.
Far from realistic, yeah. So realistic is an adjective that means like how life really is, showing a real side of things instead of seeing things as much better or worse than they really are. If you have a realistic view of the world, you know there's both good and bad sides to everything. So being told you can succeed if you might follow your dreams might be realistic in some places, but not all places.
Right, like?
Yeah, especially in the US, it's not working these days.
Okay.
All right, our example sentence for realistic. I don't think it's realistic to expect that your friends will like you, no matter what you do. You have to treat them nicely. And that's true. You have to look at things in both a good and a bad way. You have to look at them fairly. Now, Elsie's going to tell you about the grammar point in this sentence, which is far from.
Realistic 这个形容词呢，代表实际可行的或是务实的。那课文里面我们看到的是 far from realistic， 这什么意思呢？ Far from 带出来的意义是跟实际情况相去甚远，很不同，或是一点也不的意思。那我们也可以说 far from the reality. So for example, it was obvious that what he said was far from the truth. 代表他说的显然不是事实。Far from the truth. 那另外还可以表示一点也不的用法有 not at all. 前面的 not 代表句型必须要是否定的，后面加上 at all 代表一点也不。For example, she doesn't like you at all. 她一点也不喜欢你。I don't like strawberries at all. 我一点也不喜欢草莓。或者是第三种 anything but 也是一点也不的用法哦。我们可以怎么说呢？ I'm willing to do anything but give him money. 我一点也不想给他钱，所以代表我什么都能做，但就是不要把钱给他。那回到课文来，我们说到1980年代出生的孩子们，他们可以追寻梦想，可是他们现在领悟原来这跟实际的状况相去甚远。
I think this is true of me as well. I was born in 1988, and my parents told me I should follow my dreams. And I will say, things are not bad for me because I live in Taiwan, but I think if I stayed in the US, maybe my life would not be great. Maybe I would have a similar problem to Elizabeth. Yeah. So I have a lot of friends who also have her same problem too.
Right.
Yeah. So it's very true of my generation that our parents told us we could be whatever we want, and then actually it wasn't really true.
Because of the environment.
Yeah, because of how things changed.
Right.
Like for them it was true, for us it's not true. Yeah. So Elizabeth discovers this for herself over the course of the book.
Over the course of 代表的是呢，在某段时间内，所以在这本书，你在阅读这本书的时间当中，你会发现 Elizabeth 她为自己发现了一件事情，也就是追梦与事实间的差距。
Even after checking all the right boxes, she's white, she's middle class, she's got a husband and children, she still can't make her dreams happen.
那这边的 checking all the right boxes 代表做到所有该做的事情。他了解到，甚至在做到所有该做的事情之后，也没有办法让他的梦想成真。
Lynn Strong, a white middle-class woman herself, questioned her own privilege while writing her novel.
Okay, so the author Lynn Strong is a white middle class woman, right?
Yeah.
她自己就是一位这样中产阶级的白人女性，在写这本小说的时候呢，她对自己拥有的特权提出疑问。
She recognized how it would still help her, even while she was suffering. That's true, just because you have privilege doesn't mean you're never going to hurt.
Right, 所以她知道呢，特权还是会帮助到她，甚至当她在受苦的时候。
Therefore, she provided Elizabeth with the privilege of not being fired and of having a credit card that still works, even though she's broke. So she has one last credit card, remember, or else she's penniless. She's also broke. Let's find out what broke actually means. Broke here is an adjective, but it actually comes from the past tense of break, from break the bank, which means that when you have to break the money out of the bank, you have no more money. Or basically on your last little bit of money. Broke is almost the same as penniless. Broke means you can't afford things because you're out of money, whether it's because you paid all your bills or you just have nothing anyway. But penniless is a little bit different. Penniless means you can't afford basic life things. Broke might mean you just spent all your money for the month and you need to not spend on things you don't need. So, for example, I'm afraid I can't go to the movies with you tonight. I'm broke and need to save money until I get paid again. That would be broke.
Broke 这个形容词呢，代表破产的或是没钱的状态。那 penniless 比起 broke 会来的凄惨一些，好，因为 broke 可能是你把钱都花掉了，再赚就有，所以当下的状况是破产的、没钱的。那 penniless 是身无分文的。当动词用的时候，你还记得吗？ broke 是 break 的过去式。break, broke, broken 代表打破、弄坏东西。那课文说到啊，因此他也就是我们的作者 Lynn Strong， 他提供了 Elizabeth 不被开除，还有即便破产也还是有信用卡的这两个特权。
So she has these two privileges of being not fired and having a credit card that works. So she can still live. She showed the reader that even in a time of crisis, those with privilege still somehow manage to stay afloat. So we have these two words here. Crisis is the first one. Crisis is a noun that means the same as kind of emergency. Things are going badly and you need help or you need relief. If your family is in crisis, it might mean people are fighting, there's no sign of improvement, you need to look elsewhere for help. If a crisis is happening, it's very important that you solve it. So an example sentence might be, Chelsea is dealing with a crisis among her friends. They're fighting and telling her to pick a side, but she wants them to make up.
Oh, poor Chelsea.
Yeah.
Crisis 这个名词呢是危机。An economic crisis 代表的是经济的危机 ，a family crisis 代表的是家庭危机。那如果要去解决危机，我们要怎么说呢？我们可以用 resolve 这个动词 ，resolve the crisis， 或者是 find the solution to the crisis。那课文这边呢，我们看到的是 in a time of crisis， 代表的是在有危机的时候。
So she somehow has to find a way. Somehow is an adverb that means in one way or another. Somehow usually means in whatever way possible. It shows the situation is desperate or that it's not expected. You can't solve it. And it's a surprise that it's a surprise that something happened and you're not really sure how, somehow. So an example might be, I know my grades look bad, but I'll raise them somehow, even if I have to beg for extra work.
所以 somehow 这个副词代表的是以某种方式。那 Lynn Strong 让读者知道呢，即便在有危机的时候，那些有特权的人还是可以以某种方式应付生活。Manage to do something 代表的是办到某事。So I can say a cat somehow managed to survive the fire. 一只猫在火场当中幸存。不知道以什么方式，但是它就是活下来了。那最后呢，我们还看到 stay afloat、这个形容词啊，代表的是在水中漂浮的，引申为有偿还能力的，或者是在经济上是能够应付的。For example, many small businesses are still trying to stay afloat. 许多小企业还是在勉强维持经营。
So stay afloat would be like, if a ship goes down and you are hanging onto a door, you are staying afloat. You are still alive, but you're not in a great situation. Yeah.
So you're still trying.
Yeah, exactly. So people with privilege somehow manage to stay afloat. We don't know what the end result is for Elizabeth. If you want to find that out, you'll have to read Want for yourself. I think I would recommend it. It sounds like a very interesting book. So right now, that's all we have. Let's go to our For You chat.
For You chat.
All right, so our For You chat question today. Do you have privileges in your life? What are they and how do they help you succeed?
I think one of my privileges is having supportive parents and a supportive husband.
Yeah.
Because with them, I can just do whatever I want without worrying about money or my ability.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
so
great.
I can pursue my dream.
Yeah. I think I have the privilege, honestly, it's kind of a privilege being a white foreigner in Taiwan.
That's a big one.
Yeah, because I think, even though I don't like it very much, but I think white people tend to get treated better than other kinds of foreigners.
I think so.
Yeah. Like even, I remember there's one time I met a black friend outside her house and greeted her, and this ama turned around to stare at my friend, just full on like this.
Oh no.
It was so uncomfortable, and I was like, wow, that never happens to me. Like people look at me, but they don't stare at me. Yeah.
You feel people look at you with the admiring eyes
or just kind of whoa, they're different. I don't know. But yeah, I think, definitely there's that whole thing. I even have white privilege over here. Yeah. So there's that, and also I have a generally higher pay than locals when it comes to my job.
Right.
Yeah. So those are privileges that I have, definitely.
In Taiwan.
Yeah, in Taiwan. Yeah, and I'm thankful to live here. Yeah. I think, in Taiwan, we also have the privilege of not being in lockdown during COVID.
对，没错。
Yeah, so those are two things to consider. You guys probably also have things you can think of that make your life easier or just don't make it harder. So that's all the time we have. Think about, your life situation and how different things about you affect the way people treat you. So that's all we have. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Vocabulary Review. Anxiety. Alan often has anxiety about his future, as he doesn't have any plans about what to do after he leaves school. Misery. If you don't earn enough money to pay for basic things like food, you'll probably live in misery. Realistic. Some people think that humans will live on another planet within the next 50 years, but other people think that isn't realistic. Broke. When Sarah was younger, she was broke, but now she has lots of money. Crisis. COVID-19 was a huge health crisis that affected people all over the world. Somehow. Evan didn't study at all, but he still somehow passed his English exam.
智慧小补帖
Dedicate. Racism. Economy. Indifferent. Afloat.
以上节目是由活用空中美语制作，活用空中美语杂志，请洽询全国各大书店。如欲索取试听教材，请来电02-2364-4000 02-2364-4000，或上网查询，网址是 www.english4u.net www.english4u.net